can an untrained male defeat a female martial artist? Though a man hitting a woman in any context is absolute sacrilege, debate still rages online and in person on the topic, with many citing men's heightened testosterone, muscle and strength as deciding factors. While undeniable traits, I feel the strength and size notion is more tied to wrestling and grappling, as individuals can impose themselves more effectively. Boxing, however, is a slightly different story. The consensus is that men punch with 162% more power, but these are trained males who know how to rotate their trunk and pivot their legs. Instead, for this discussion, we're talking about the untrained.
No way. Come on.
On the 9th of October 1999, something unprecedented happened. The first and only licensed male against female boxing match took place.
Margaret Tiger McGregor against Lloyd Chow, a winless boxer who hadn't fought in 3 years.
I just can't see how she could beat me.
At 33, Canada's Lloyd Chow, though not entirely untrained, boasted an underwhelming pro record of 0-2, losing both by knockout. Fighting as a featherweight and standing at just 5'2", he wasn't the most imposing of figures, yet he was still confident of victory.
I've had two.
How about amateur?
Amateur boxing bout, I believe I have none.
Yeah. Never fought amateur?
His opponent, Margaret McGregor, was 5'5" and 36 years old. Having come off the back of 3 swift victories, she was quietly optimistic. Those in the boxing world presumed the worst, vehemently disagreeing with the concept of a man striking a woman in any format, alongside showing concern for McGregor's well-being.
I shudder at the thought. He's throwing lefts and rights and hitting her in her face.
Though I'd obviously share the disdain for men exerting force against women, the backlash was still overblown, largely through overestimating Chow's strength and fighting credentials, and underestimating McGregor. Not only was Chow painfully inexperienced, he was even called in at late notice to replace Hector Morales. Though much of the fight footage has been lost, McGregor would proceed to win all 4 rounds on the 3 judges' scorecards. With both fighters weighing roughly the same, the playing fields were levelled as McGregor flicked light jabs, landed combinations and slipped nicely. This has perhaps provided the best simulation of the untrained male against a female boxer myth. Despite not being knocked out or sent to the canvas, Chow simply bounced around the ring as if he were looking for an exit. This is where I get frustrated with the delusion of some individuals. Boxers, though reliant upon strength, are equally if not more dependent upon their skills, cardio and speed. Strength in relative terms doesn't equate to fighting ability. In Jackass the movie, the merit of technique over absolute strength was dramatically revealed. Though Ryan Dunn was holding back to a degree, the skill and combinations thrown by the female kickboxer were both painful and clearly damaging. Now, I love exploring boxing culture in countries and have therefore created a retro Cuban boxing t-shirt. Hopefully the first of many from around the world, but we'll see how we go. If you are somewhat interested and want to support my project, please consider purchasing one. I'd greatly appreciate it. Now, the concept of an untrained male is evidently broad. Are we talking about an athletic, in-shape person or an average Joe who never visits the gym and leads an inactive life? Well, as I'm addressing the myth here, I'd say we're focusing more on the latter. After all, the athletic person, through their experience and knowledge on sporting activities, tends to recognise both their own capabilities but also accepts that against a heavily trained female, they may be out of their depth. Strangely, through researching, it appears that those most confident at defeating a trained female boxer are often those men who have never actually boxed before, let alone engaged in combat sports generally. The default reasoning, which I've even heard firsthand, is either citing their weight advantage or claiming that they just see turn red and bodies start dropping. And this is based upon the assumption that the man will even land a glove on the trained female boxer. When Danielle Wolfe, an American amateur boxer, took on sports show host Alex Monaco, the outcome was insightful. Monaco had effectively zero boxing training, while Wolfe had represented the US at the 2016 Olympics and boasted a fairly extensive record. With the two evenly matched weight-wise, Monaco struggled to impose himself or even close the distance, being routinely caught by Wolfe with jabs and hooks. She would eventually knock Monaco down, possibly even out, despite him sporting headgear. The main takeaway is how uncoordinated and awkward Monaco looked throughout. Admittedly, if he had tried to land a shot with full power, it could have been devastating, but how would he be able to close the gap, or even set up such a powerful shot? But still, there are caveats.
I have sparred every type of man. I've sparred muscular men, I've sparred fat men, I've sparred super tall men, short men, don't care. I've sparred everything. And there has never been a scenario where a total beginner has beat me in sparring. That's just not how it works. I hope all boxers will back me up on this.
As much as I understand her point, especially relating to her skill level, there's certain issues here. Firstly, she's referring to sparring, which, although it can be hard and brutal, is unlikely to simulate an actual boxing fight. The guys will likely be wary not to throw absolute haymakers at full power, as I'm sure Erica Knight also wouldn't. Yet, as Erica states, she's fought muscular and tall novices who will likely weigh considerably more than her. If, say, in a real boxing fight scenario, they unleashed overhands, hooks, and just general swings, they could feasibly catch her flush through sheer luck. Due to their size advantage, Erica's shots may not be quite as damaging additionally, so this scenario could see her toppled, through luck more than skill, may I add. Therefore, in my view, the untrained male has a fighting chance in this kind of situation, though I'd still argue the trained female boxer has the advantage. Now, some of you absolute jokers may point to less pure tactics as a way of gaining leverage, even in a regulated boxing bout. After all, in The Complete Boxer from 1914, Lynch states, "One seldom sees any clinching, butting, holding, knee, elbow or wrist hitting, glove holding, nerve gouging, or any of the other innumerable dirty tricks that are practiced by low-class pros." I feel through deploying such measures, the fight becomes more akin to a street fight or MMA contest, which I've strayed away from in this video. These contests are obviously far harder to call, and a bloke can really exert his strength here. But clinching is of course a part of boxing, and Erica Knight doesn't really factor this in. If a far larger male opponent uses his size to tire and exhaust the experienced female boxer, then this could obviously increase the chance of them being caught with a flailing arm. Or perhaps the man can strike the female in the clinch, though this is extremely cowardly, so let's presume the gentleman is fighting in a gentlemanly manner. Now, the sad reality of this myth is that while most people aren't very familiar with the specific mechanics, techniques, and skill sets involved with striking, mostly everyone is familiar with the very obvious physical advantage average men have over average women. This has bred an unjustified level of confidence and overestimation. One of the first things taught in boxing classes prior to sparring is how to accept contact, usually on the forehead, without turning or flinching away. It takes time and experience to acclimatise to being hit, and not simply shell up like a tortoise or turn your back. And those who are untrained will always have a tendency towards this when a trained person rains down hits. This clip specifically shows the untrained male closing his eyes and throwing tentative shots back, high above the head of the female, therefore underlining the main issue. There could be an argument that a smaller trained female may not possess the power to properly knock a larger opponent down, yet there is one obvious weak point in the human anatomy which those trained to a decent level will be all too aware of. The liver shots are nature's light switch. No matter how big, tough, or strong an untrained man is, if you receive a hard shot in that region, you're likely crumpling to the canvas. It's therefore a solid weapon for trained boxers to instantly shock and render an inexperienced opponent redundant, as evidenced in this Japanese matchup. Untrained fighters will often be unaware of this vulnerability and fail to take the steps to cover up the area and protect it. To conclude, the myth that an untrained male can easily beat a trained female fighter, let alone a boxer, is certainly damaging. In a society where combat sports can be such a useful tool for women to ward off attackers or predatory individuals, the myth being peddled can truly damage this. It may dissuade women from taking up boxing, kickboxing or wrestling if they constantly hear that martial arts are futile and wouldn't enable them to defend themselves in a meaningful way, when basic knowledge of striking could certainly save them if they find themselves in horrific situations. But I don't want to sound too much like a pick-me guy.
Women have it hard, okay? Women have it hard. You have no idea what women go through every day, okay?
But now I want to hear what you guys think. Would an entirely untrained man have a chance against a female trained boxer in a licensed match? Have I got it wrong, or do you guys agree with me? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please consider liking and subscribing, it really does mean the most. Why not pick up a t-shirt while you're on your way out? That's all. All the best, guys. Cheers.